Hi guys, my name is Christy and I am the human portion of Apex Sterling Greyhounds. Today we are just going to go over some of the things that I do with a new dog. Generally not so much with my puppies, but more so with like a new foster that comes off the track, a dog that hasn't done any learning, hasn't learned, hasn't done any training, hasn't learned, never learned, so to speak. This is sort of how I teach them what we're looking for in training and how to learn. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves to our clicker. So this is my clicker. They come in slightly different shapes and sizes. Sometimes the click sounds a little bit different, but overall they're very similar. They're usually about this size, and they have a button of some sort on the top that when you push it makes a click noise, like that. Basically what these are marking devices for us. They're timing marking devices. So humans are notoriously bad at getting our timing right. The timing is incredibly important to dog training. Dogs are far better with isolating their timing than we are. So this helps us kind of bridge that disconnect between them and us. So basically what this clicker is going to do is it's going to mark the behavior. It's going to tell the dog, hey, that's what I was looking for, and your reward is coming. This helps us with the timing in the sense that we either because we are bad with our timing or because we are fumbling around with our treat pouch here looking for our treat, we sometimes inadvertently reward a behavior that we weren't looking to reward. So for example, say we are teaching a dog how to sit, we ask them for the sit, we get them into their sit, and especially with fight hounds, with that position, it's not something that sort of comes naturally or is comfortable for them. They're very prone to sort of just popping down and then popping right back up again. And the difficulty is that we need to let them know that the sit was what we were looking for. Unfortunately, what often happens is we get the dog to plonk its butt down and then it pops back up, and then we reach into our pocket and we get a treat and we give it to the dog. The dog actually now thinks that it just got rewarded for standing up. Another example illustrates it well, but it's probably not applicable to most of you guys, but is potty training a puppy. So, when I sometimes hear people are having trouble potty training their puppy, when I ask some questions, it turns out that they're letting the dog go outside. They're maybe standing at the door waiting for the puppy. Maybe the weather is really awful here in Edmonton in the winter, and they've got, a winter puppy. But they put the dog out, the dog goes out, it does potty, and then it comes back to the door and the owner praises it and gives it a treat. The dog doesn't associate this reward with going potty outside. What it associates it with is coming to the door. And so it's not making any sort of association of I should be peeing outside. And so, when we have this problem, what we tell owners is you need to go outside with your puppy on a leash. As soon as it potties, you praise it and you give it the treat right then. Okay, so this is sort of what I'm talking about with the timing. Do not lick your foot. She's got a wound on her foot. She keeps wanting to look at it. But yeah, so the first thing we need to do with our clicker is we need to load our clicker. I often skip this step, honestly. I don't find it super important. It maybe sort of speeds things along, and you can definitely try it. The dog will enjoy it. I often find if I just skip this step, it just takes the dog, a few repetitions longer to understand the clicker, but it just sort of comes organically through the training process. But I'm going to show you how to load the clicker. And so for that we need Kenna. Alright, lay down. So I'm going to get her lay down just because it's easier to visualize for the video here. But basically what we need to teach her is that the click equals a treat. So basically this is very simple. All you do is click and give the treat. Okay, you're going to repeat several times. Probably going to do this in several different sessions. My dog already obviously knows this. But what you're basically looking for is that, if your dog becomes distracted by something, say, that when she already knows what's coming. But if I click, See how she turns her head right away. She hears the click, she knows the treat is coming. When your dog gives you that, you know that they understand the clicker completely, and then we usually move on to the next step at that point. Good girl, okay. So we have loaded our clicker. Our dog now knows what the clicker is. They now know that click equals treat coming. So remember that in all of this, the sequence of events is always click and then treat, okay? If anybody watched the newest Jurassic Park with Chris Pratt, who I love, but in that movie, he is training the velociraptors and he uses a clicker. He does some clicker training. Do not do what he does because it's completely wrong, and it bothers me every time I watch the movie because some very simple research would have fixed this little glitch in the movie. But yeah, so always remember click and then the treat comes. Okay, and ideally, what is going to happen is you need that click to happen exactly at the time that the behavior you want happens. Okay, so I always start out with some target training. I find this to be a very simple way to teach the dog how to learn, and also a fairly simple way to teach the humans how to use their clickers and get their timing right. So that's usually where we start. Basically what's going to happen is you are going to hold your target in one hand and your clicker in the other, or sometimes I will hold both in one hand. Just make sure that your finger is on the button ready to click. And what we're going to do is we're basically just going to show the target to the dog. Dogs are generally fairly curious creatures, so at some point they are going to sniff or investigate this target, and when that happens, we're going to click and give them a treat. Okay, now you want to have this behavior be fairly consistent before you introduce a cue word or start asking for it. You want to know that the dog understands. So I'm gonna show you how this works with my dog. Keep in mind that this is not completely organic because she already knows these behaviors very well. It does allow me to show you the full progression very quickly here over a couple of minutes, but just remember not to get frustrated if it is taking, well, it will take longer at home with a new dog, obviously. Okay, so for this we need our dog back. Kennel. So let's see if we can get her to lay down. I'm going to get her to lay down just because it's easier for me to demonstrate. But basically, I am going to keep the target behind my back so it is out of sight, so it will be new and different and interesting to her. And then I'm going to present it. She touches it, I click at the moment that her nose touches the target, and then I give her the treat. And I have time to reach into my pocket because of my lovely clicker. Okay, so basically once your dog is reliably touching the target every time you pull it out from behind your back, you need to make sure that this understanding is sort of complete, and you need to start moving your target around, okay? You're going to start with variations, kind of getting further and further away, but ultimately you want to be able to do this. Probably shouldn't have clicked for that one. She tried to grab it with her mouth like a bad dog, but that's okay. Good. So I'm not going to click for that because I don't want her chewing on it. She'll figure it out. Yes. Lay down. Good girl. Yes. She's actually more used to doing hand targets than she is targets. But yeah, so once you can move it around and your dog's understanding is really good of what the behavior is, then now at this point we can introduce a cue word. You want to make sure that whenever you're introducing a cue, this goes for this exercise or any other new behavior that you are trying to teach, you want to make sure that the behavior is very solidly understood before you start putting a word to it. And this is because in the beginning you're not necessarily sure it's going to happen, and you want to know that it's going to happen when you say the word, so that they can start to associate the word with the behavior. So same way that we've associated the clicker with treat, we want to now, when we're training, associate our cue words with the behavior, and that can only happen if the behavior is consistent. So now I'm going to say touch. You can use whatever word you want. Mine is obviously touch. You can use target. You can use spot, you can use whatever you want. Touch, touch, yes. So I asked for it again because she again tried to grab it with her mouth. She's a little bit of a mouthy dog. Touch, touch. That's how you teach a hand, or well, a target. You can then also move on to your hand touch, which is what she's more used to doing, because I will do these at agility. Touch. I was a little late on the click there. Finger wasn't on the button. Touch. That was better. On my part, you're always good. Right, on your podium. So another thing that I teach to all of my new dogs is I teach them to give eye contact. A lot of new dogs, especially if they're shy, they may not give a whole lot of eye contact. That's not unusual. Dogs and humans are very different. We obviously like eye contact. It lets us know, that the other person is paying attention, that they're listening to us. We can read a lot from eye contact. A lot of other animals do not particularly appreciate direct eye contact. Dogs often do not. It can be a little bit threatening to, especially sustained eye contact. So that's not unusual for a new dog to, especially if it's a shyer dog, to not want to make eye contact or sustain eye contact. It is really helpful for us though in the long run as far as training goes. I need my dog to be paying attention to me so that I know that when I ask them to do something that they're already paying attention, they're more likely to do. And if they're sort of not really paying attention, then we want to get them paying attention first before we start asking them for anything. So I start teaching every new dog how to give eye contact. We'll see how this goes with her because she pretty much just gives me constant eye contact because she really wants to work and learn and do stuff. So it does make it a little bit difficult. But basically there are a couple of ways that we can train this. I usually start with a treat in each hand. Okay, so you'll have, that's not a very good treat, but you'll have one treat in each hand in a closed fist. And I just offer them out. The dog will generally sniff at the treats for a while, trying to nose them out and trying to get you to give them to them. But you basically just ignore them, and when they stop nosing around, usually they'll look at you as if to say, hey, what's going on? Give me the treat. And at that moment you can click and treat. If you find this difficult to do with the clicker if you find it difficult to do with two hands, because the clicker in one hand, a couple of options. One, this works perfectly fine with just one hand if you would like to do that. So just cookies in one hand. The other thing that you can do is instead of using an actual clicker, you can do what we call a verbal click. So basically, you don't actually need to use a clicker. The clicker is nice because it makes a very consistent sound every single time. It's recognizable to the dog. And that's all we need is just something that is sort of the same every single time as an audible marker to the dog. Sometimes it is not convenient to be using a handheld clicker because you need both hands to be doing things for the behavior you're trying to do. And so in a lot of those cases, we will just use a verbal click. Most people use the word yes. It's very short, it's concise, it comes out fairly similarly every single time you say it. And that's all you want. You just want consistency, short, sharp sound. Okay, so you can do that instead if this is annoying with the hands and all of that. For my purposes, I will just do the one-handed approach. Alright, so we're going to ask her to lay down. I'm going to show her the treat in this hand. She's probably going to nose at it for a while. So as soon as she looked at me there, I gave her the treat. Yes, girl. She knows a lot of behaviors, and This is not one that we particularly work on very often because she's got pretty good attention. So she's a dog that has been heavily shaped, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later. So she's going to throw behaviors at me whenever she thinks we're working or we're doing something. If I don't ask for something specific, I'm trying to, teach her something new or what have you, she will start throwing out behaviors, which is very helpful. And we are going to talk about shaping, but that's basically what she's doing right now. She's trying to figure out. Yes, she's trying to figure out what I want, and so she's throwing behaviors. No, we just did hand touches, so she's trying to do hand touches. She's pawing at the hand. So you can see now it's getting quicker and quicker with her looking at me. That's very nice. I'm going to reward her just because that's a behavior we've been working on. I probably shouldn't because now it's all she's going to want to do, but she doesn't like to offer that behavior. Yes. So I do want to encourage her. Yes. Okay, so you can see it's getting quicker and quicker with the eye contact. Same thing here. If you want to have a verbal put on, but you actually want to have a command to have your dog look at you, you can definitely do that. My oldest dog has watch me, which is just make eye contact cue. The girls I didn't really bother doing that with. I just use their names, but you could watch me. You want to do it just as you know the dog is going to look up and make eye contact with you. Or once they've made eye contact with you, whichever happens. Watch me. That's fine. Let's get one more in there. Watch me. Yes, good girl. This is the last and final thing. It's sort of part of the basics or the fundamentals. It's called 100 Things for the Box. All you need is your clicker, your dog, some treats, and a box. I usually use larger boxes just so that there are more options available to me, but this is the only box I could find today, so we're going to use it. This exercise is working on something that we call shaping to a certain extent. It's working on asking the dog to just offer behaviors, okay? So, we're going to talk about luring, which is, treat in hand, dog follows the treat, and you get them to, position themselves the way you want or do what you want by following the treat. Whereas this is kind of asking the dog to think for themselves and think outside the box and offer behaviors until something works. So in this game, absolutely any contact with the box earns a click and a treat. And so for the first little while, especially with the retired racers, I find that don't lick your foot. They're not super interested in the boxes. They're not the bull in a china shop kind of dog for most of them. Some of them are a little bit shy or a little bit wary of objects that move and make noises and all of that. So, if your dog doesn't take to it right away, I'd say work on these other exercises, do some other training and come back to it because it is a useful tool to have a dog that will actually offer new things and try new things. It does help you with some training weirder behaviors, more complex behaviors, and that sort of thing, to have a dog that's willing to think and offer. Okay, but right now, basically we'll take anything. At some point you might see something that you really like, in which case you would start to just sort of narrow down your criteria to just that one thing. So for example, maybe she's going to start offering to put her feet in the box, and I think, hey, it'd be really cool if she put all 4 of her feet in this teeny tiny little box. That would be a pretty cool trick. I will start to gear what I'm rewarding for to that goal, okay? But in the beginning, just absolutely anything. I'm not sure if she's actually played this game before, so this might be somewhat organic. So she sniffed it, she gets a treat. Sniffed it, she gets a treat. Sniffed it, she gets a treat. putting her foot on the flat. Gonna do it again. So basically anything she wants to offer me with this box for right now, I am good with. Eventually, I would start to tighten up my foot. Yeah, see there, she's going putting her foot right in the box. So, you know, that would, I might not reward chewing on the box, but that would be just pivoting around the box with her feet on it. I'll take that as well. So that's basically how it's done.